what's real, what's not real in franchising. Guys, how do you grow your franchise system? How do you go from emerging or startup franchise to thriving franchise system? How do you navigate the franchise industry? What are the secrets? What are the steps? What do you need to avoid? Coming up next. All right, Laura Coe, this is going to be everything. It's really not, but we're going to have a great conversation. And for those of you who don't know Laura, she's an amazing individual, founded Snapology, took it from its very beginning roots in Pittsburgh with Laura Coe and grew a great franchise system and eventually exited. So Laura, I know before this we were having, I guess what could be a psychotic conversation on my part, but it's always great speaking.
It's always good, whether it's psychotic or not. It's always good.
Laura, so we were talking before we hit record here, and one of the things, or one of my frustrations, is like people enter the franchise world. They don't know the industry. You were there. You did it. You navigated all of this, and they don't know where to turn. They think, maybe I go spend X dollars with brokers because I'm going to go get broker deals, or Y dollars with a certain sales organization, or I'm going to go to this conference and that conference and I'm going to spend my money. And there's so many promises out there all over the industry, franchise advisors, vendors, lawyers, organizations, everyone. People are going to put you on the cover of a magazine and on a website, and this is going to be great. And my frustration before is like, we know there's a pathway. How do you even start the conversation with a new franchise brand with who's thinking these things?
Yeah, it's really tough because I think the challenge is everybody wants the magic bullet, right? They all want the, get rich quick kind of thing. And I get asked a million times, how did you do it? I want to do what you did. And, the tough reality is there's no magic bullet. There's no secret sauce. They're not missing something. It's not like somebody just needs to tell them what to do and they can do it. It's different for everybody. It's, for me, I happened to hit the market at a time, and Snapology was STEM education at a time when STEM education was becoming big. So, not that it was luck per se, but I would say success is 90% perseverance and 10% luck, right? And I happened to hit the luck in there. And for me, what worked for me may not work for somebody else. So I think the challenge is when you're an emerging franchisor, there's so many people coming at you from so many different angles. And you see these successful, honestly, a lot of one-offs. There's, over 3,000 franchises. And you hear about the one case where somebody, grew by 700 in a year. And if you could just replicate but you can't replicate it, right? Some of those are right business, right time. Some of them are hooking up with the right vendor, right entity sometimes, and just sort of getting there at the right time and having the right tools and being ready to do it. But somebody in the same industry, same exact thing, could try to replicate it and not have that. So there's, things happen in the industry. It's not, again, I think the struggle is everybody wants to know, what should I do? And there's no answer to that, And so for me, I think the key is try different things and double down on what works for you, because what works for you may not be what somebody told you to do, may not be what worked for somebody else, even somebody else in your industry. And so I think that's the challenge. It's the, what I guess I always had, what do they call that? The imposter syndrome, right? Mm-hmm. I always felt like, I don't know what I'm doing. What am I missing? If only I had more franchise experience, if only I had more experience in Fran Dev, then I'd be successful. But 9 times out of 10, that's not the case.
Right.
It's just a matter of, plowing through it and figuring out what works for your brand. FSOs can be great for some brands. They're not so great for other brands, right? Working with brokers, great for some brands, not so great for other brands. Even when you dig down into the individual broker groups, we worked with, over the time of Snapology, we probably worked with 10 different groups, and some of them were fantastic and some of them were duds, like complete duds. And so even when you decide you want to do something, even if you go organic, there's a million different ways right? To draw people. There's social media, there's, the Google ads, there's a million different ways to organically grow your business. What's going to work for you? Which social media? And so that's the challenge, is that it's not a great answer to the question you posed, but I think even just knowing that you're not missing something, there's not some secret sauce that you just need to be told and you're going to be magically successful. It's a grind. No matter what you do, it's a grind and there's no guarantees.
Well, Laura, I mean, you said, and you're the example of perseverance, and for everyone who's going to be listening, background is Laura, super intelligent person, hardworking. You and Lisa start Snapology in Pittsburgh. One or two corporate locations. You go down the franchising route, so you have some franchisees along the way. Outside looking in, when we would speak, you always had intensity and you're always mission focused, right? So to me, what creates growth, if I'm reflecting on Snapology and winning brands, number one is the brand positioning, is having a purpose and a mission. Two is understanding your unit economics, living up to that. And then the third part, which you were always focused on, was answering the questions of how you help me do it, right? Which is, for you, it was a technology stack and other, and then over time, finding the right balance, not over promising, not under. What is our economic opportunity profile? So you continuously dove into that. And I even remember years ago when we had a conversation, I tell this story often, which was, I think we had a conversation. I said, I even recommended, Laura, I think brokers are an opportunity here. Low startup cost, low startup cost business. It could be mobile, home-based, and then a year later, we're at a conference together and you're getting an award for like the most franchise sales. That's perseverance, right? Because you didn't get that result right away. It took time.
Yeah, for sure. And part of that too, and I know we're talking about, kind of growth through sales, but you can't grow the sales. I think an important piece too is you can't grow it unless you do have the unit economics, unless
Right.
you have the support systems in place. And that's not, you need to spend years and years and years building it and then you franchise. It's, you get it going for your corporate store, you know what you're doing, and then you're continually improving it. You're continually making your operations manual better. You're continually adding support tools. You're continually, doing those things and continually improving the unit economics, whether that's, driving different, revenue, growth opportunities or whatever it is for the franchisees. But it's that continuous growth. Because if you're one of the things we had going with us at Snapology is we had great validation from our franchisees. Our franchisees were happy, and so you can't grow a system if you don't have the infrastructure. Because even if you want to be one of those brands that goes crazy and grows at like 100 a year or something, and that's the other thing is most brands don't grow at 50, 60, 100 brands, new locations a year. I don't even know what the average is. I don't know if you know that, but I would say most, if you can grow it 7 to 10 in your first couple years, and then you can scale that up. At my peak, I was growing at 30 or 40 a year with Snapology. I think that's normal. I don't think growing at 50 a year. I mean, if you have the infrastructure to do it, once you get bigger, you can certainly do that. When you've got 10 locations, doubling your size in 1 year is a lot. And if you're trying to get that big 100 a year, can you even handle that? I mean, is that even responsible, right? I mean, could you even do that? So I think just really understanding the basics and getting all of the foundation of your business solid. And then, the way I did it was I slowly went into one broker group, then I went into another, and brokers were great for us. 30% of our sales ended up being broker sales in most years. And that was great. There's a cost associated with that, but also the candidates can sometimes be a little bit more well vetted by the brokers. And so there's pros and cons to working, with any group that you're going to work with. But for us, it was great. I mean, it was, 30% brokers, 30 to 40% organic. And we had a lot of, in franchisee referrals, and so
Right.
and I think that's more normal than when you go out there and you're hearing all these stories about how somebody grew so big so fast and you want to do that. First off, I'm not sure everybody can do that or wants to do that, truly wants to do that. I've seen a couple franchises implode because of that.
Right. Well, there's plenty of those. But even to your point, Laura, you found success in the broker groups, which for the right brand, right opportunity profile, I'm a big fan of. For anyone listening to this, but also know that was in year X. And before that, Laura sold franchises, supported franchisees, supported their unit economics, supported their technology. So you enter the broker world, we have a solidified brand, clear brand positioning in a growing industry. We hit the mark on our opportunity profile, our estimated startup costs. Oh, and by the way, broker, what's going to be important to you is when you refer someone, do we have validation with other franchisees? And does our unit economics align? And so you did it the right way, right? That was positioned the right way. Where I get frustrated is new franchisors. And, when we're working with our clients, we talk about a 5-year vision. And I tell the same story all the time, which is, you're going to see the brand that's selling a lot of franchises, but you're seeing this part of the journey. Maybe in years 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, you're not seeing the 1, 2, 3. Where if those brands that are accelerating and growing and look like an overnight success, we said there was a foundation set for 3 years, 4 years, onboarding the right franchisees, improving along the way, building your in-house team, getting unit economics right, and then scaling at the rate. So many new franchisors, my frustration, they'll speak with franchise advisors or consultants. They're led to believe they're going to grow right away. Or if they just speak to this person or that person or the right relationship, we're just going to grow magically, some magic seeds. Or if we're on the cover of a magazine. But then when I look back, I'm like, now they've spent a year or two doing this, not gaining traction. What do I see? I go to the website. It's just generic, franchise with us, join a $50 trillion industry. Here's the steps to becoming a franchisee. Oh, and here's the numbers. You're going to pay a 6% royalty. You're going to invest $500,000. So I see nothing about the founder. I don't see the positioning. I see nothing about how you're going to help me. And they're not doing that work because it's hard. And then everyone gets attracted to, well, just sign up for this or pay that. And then they don't gain track. What's your advice for those brands, for those new franchisors?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough too, because all of that costs a lot of money to do and to do well. And so for me, one of the very first things that I did, which I think really helped our organic growth, was focus on the website. And I actually had a local Pittsburgh company do it. Because quite frankly, I couldn't afford some of the other brands. And we're going back 15 years. So
Right.
everything's different now. That might be more affordable now. So I don't want to knock any of the,
Right.
kind of bigger brands doing it. But I just couldn't afford, a complete overhaul on my website from one of the bigger kind of franchise companies. So I had a local company. They were phenomenal. I mean, I spent a decent amount of money, but it was in my budget. It was what I could afford, and really focused on, just the basics of websites. Like, I think sometimes you get caught up in, I want my website to look like this or do this, but you've got to focus on keywords. You've got to focus on, how you're ranked and, when somebody searches for you and all of those basic kind of marketing things. You need a professional to do it, and somebody who really understands how to build it so that when somebody's searching for your type of business, they can find you. Without a good website, you won't have, you need that organic growth. You need some people, you can't pay for every single, lead you get. So, when you're growing, that franchise fee revenue, you need to go. And if you're paying it all back out in brokers, I couldn't have, if I had 100% broker sales, I honestly couldn't have afforded to grow my franchise. Brokers are phenomenal, but when you're a smaller brand, and we were also a service-based brand and a low-cost brand. So when you're in that situation, you're charging a franchise fee of $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 for an all-in investment of, $50,000, $60,000, $70,000. You can't you can't afford to pay you kind of have to pay a minimum almost. If you don't pay a broker at least 20 or 25, you're not going to be able to compete with other brands out there. So in some years, 100% of my franchise fee went to pay the brokers. And in other years, it was, typically about 75. So you've got to have a good website to get some of that organic growth so that you can have that revenue to invest in other areas, to invest in brokers, to invest in things. But I think, first off, a website is also it's your prospective franchisees' first opportunity to look at you, right? It's their first impression of you, how professional you are, how you do things, how open and honest you are about things, how, just kind of how you talk and how you approach things, right? Is it light and fun? Is it overloaded with stuff, right? It's your personality. And so the website is so, so important. It kind of drives it. Again, going back to, you've got to get the fundamentals of your business, right? The website, the, materials that you're going to present to your franchise candidates, everything that the franchisee needs to run it. You've got to have that stuff so that you can grow and grow the right way.
Laura, and I'm going to follow up with, I think, two journey type questions. And by the way, on the website, I think you said, or I'm paraphrasing about it, it reflects your personality, which is key, right? You're going to go meet brokers or candidates and have conversations. At midnight, they're going to be immersing in your website, that story. And that's something that's critical. In terms of journey, the two things that are always interesting to me is for new franchisors, how should they view the operations manual? And I'll start with the caveat that it's critically important, right? The operational element, the communication. I find, though, too often people package these in a box, like buy a franchise in a box and here's your operations manual. And these new franchisors don't know it's sort of something that needs to live and evolve. And you start off with version 1.0 and it's not you need and so how did you navigate with the operations manual as a new franchisor and as you matured? One, and then two, how did you navigate with your internal teams in terms of you were doing franchise sales yourself and then, right?
Yeah. So the operations manual, it's a living, breathing document. I mean, I actually put it for us. We had it lived out on Google Drive. It was in a Google document, and the leadership team at Snapology always had access to it. And so any time something would happen, or maybe even just like a help desk question of somebody, and we'd be like, boy, that should really be in our operations manual. I mean, I will say that every single training that we did, we had to print out. We had to print out a new operations manual because we had changed it from the prior training, right? So pretty much monthly was really how often we changed it, and it was everything. I mean, when I look at the very first version of it, I mean, it might have been 30 pages long. I think we ended up. It's probably about I'm not sure where it is today, but probably about 60 pages. I mean, you keep adding things in as you learn and you realize, it's not a how-to for your business because every business you're going to need in-person training and everything, but you really want it to be the backup and the foundation for somebody to learn kind of what you're doing and just the rules of engagement too. We ended up putting, a code of conduct in there to make sure that our franchisees were kind to each other and, that we all, kind of acted in a certain professional manner and things that I never thought I would add in and certainly weren't in the first version. But then as your business evolves, the operations manual has to evolve with it, right? You just have to be doing it. So for us, it was monthly. I mean, from marketing, operations, we're a curriculum-based company. So even on the curriculum, we were changing it all the time. And then, I mean, in terms of doing it, I mean, when we first started, it was me. I mean, I was, I was selling it. I was running the local franchise. I was, but that didn't last long. You can only burn the candle at both ends for so long. And quite frankly, you have to know your strengths, right? So the first thing that I did was I hired an operations manager. That ended up turning into a COO position as we got bigger. But when we were small, COO seemed kind of silly, right? When you've only got your corporate location and you're out there trying to do sales, or you've only got a few locations. And so for me, I hired to my weaknesses. So the first position that I hired was kind of an operations person. I was actually I had to make some money somewhere, so I was still working kind of part-time doing actuarial work. And so I needed somebody who could be available all day, who could be interacting and interfacing. And I wanted that kind of, wanted to make sure somebody was available, either myself or somebody else, to get back to prospects, to get back to customers. And then the second position that I hired was a marketing person. Again, hiring kind of to my weaknesses, right? My background is not marketing. At first, we outsourced it. At first, we outsourced the marketing to just a traditional marketing company to do not only the localized kind of franchise stuff, but then also to help us with some campaigns to try to find franchise candidates. So for me, those were the first two positions that were critical. For other people, it might be different, right? But for me, those were kind of my biggest weaknesses. As soon as I could afford to bring marketing in-house, I did, because I think knowing the brand, having somebody 100% dedicated to your brand is so critical. Not that there aren't some great marketing agencies out there, but for me, what we were doing in STEM education, it just felt like I really needed somebody who understood that. And then, of course, somebody who understood franchising and somebody I could afford also. The agencies can be expensive. So actually, it saved us money to bring it in-house at one point. So that was key. And then the next one was franchise development, right? I needed to hire somebody to do the sales. And sometimes for some people that comes first, honestly. Sometimes, they can do the operations, but they need somebody to do the sales. Then, I loved being the face of the brand. I loved, kind of talking to people, but I'm just not a salesperson. It's never been kind of my forte, like never really in my wheelhouse. But I was so passionate about the business and so passionate about Snapology that, I did franchise sales. I want to say I did it for probably 3 years on my own, maybe even up to 4 years on my own before I was able to hire somebody. And thankfully, I hired somebody primarily on commission. I did give them a little bit of a stipend to kind of help pay for some of the administrative stuff that they were doing. And then we kind of grew from there. I mean, once you have sort of those, 3 critical kind of your operations, your marketing, and your fran dev, you can kind of run from there. I mean, we had to add a curriculum development person at some point. I outsourced that for a while and then brought that in-house. But, you've got your 3 areas, your marketing, your operations, and your fran dev. And you've got to figure out what you're good at first off, or what you can afford, to in-source first.
Yeah, I think that's probably some of the best advice anyone who's starting in franchising can get. And Laura, one of your points is you said you're not a salesperson, but you also said that you did it for 3 years, right? So this overnight success wasn't overnight. And what I think is so great about you doing these things, working through your operations manual, continuously improving it, working through the franchise sales, interacting with people, is now as the founder, you've gotten to experience the franchise world. You're getting to see what's going on, what your brand, what people are asking, where they support they need. So now when you do 3 years later or whenever look for assistance for someone on manuals or on franchise sales support or outside vendors, you have a good reference point and can judge what, and that's what I think is so difficult, because new franchisors don't have that reference point. And if they think this is just I'm going to hire X and they're going to make me successful, I think that's where they go wrong, right? I'd love to believe our clients succeed because of us, right? Or that we play a small role, but I tell everyone time and again, go look to the founder. It's the founders that do it, right? Of these brands. So
yeah, but you do. Yeah. I mean, it's funny because I do actually credit your firm with some of my success too, because it's also aligning yourself with people in the industry that can help you. I mean, no founder that didn't kind of grow up in franchising, but no sort of organic founder that just, turns something into, turns something from nothing into something. No organic founder has the background in franchising. They don't, I mean, you were my law firm, but I came to you with everything. I mean, I was like, who should I use for this? Who should I use for that? Where should I go for this? Aligning yourself with people in the industry. And sometimes that's just other franchisors, right? There are all
Right.
kinds of like networking groups, mastermind groups and stuff like that, which actually you brought me to some of those as well. But aligning yourself with people in the industry, for me, was critical because number one, it made me feel like I wasn't an idiot. Like I was like, why don't I know how to do any of this stuff? Like, I mean, but I'm a mathematician. I mean, I'm a math nerd by trade. I got the finance stuff under control. But, beyond that, I was kind of fighting my way. And I think most founders are like that. They may be good at marketing, but they're not good at maybe the finances. And so you have to navigate your way. And I found the best way to do that is to align yourself with somebody who doesn't have, you know, sort of skin in the game on it, right? So another franchisor that isn't investing in your company, or,
Right.
a vendor that doesn't have a vested interest in having you spend money with them, you know, working with people in the industry and aligning yourself and just asking the questions. And then it is a matter of sorting through it. If you ask 5 different franchisors what to do for franchise sales, you'll probably get 5 different answers. And so it's sorting through that and sort of going with your gut, maybe trying a few things, but don't be afraid to abandon it if if you've put enough time into it, of course, and it's failing. Just because it succeeded for somebody else doesn't mean it'll succeed for you. So it's a trial and error. There's no magic bullet, and I wish there was, because I mean, I'm working with several brands that are kind of similar to Snapology, just not same industry or anything,
Right.
but similar in the way they do their business, and every one of them approaches franchise sales differently. I mean, they all do.
Well, and Laura, it feels like 2 minutes ago, but I don't know. When we had that first mastermind in New York, I don't know how many years ago it was, right? But which gets to that collaboration and meeting other franchisors. And one of my secret goals, and for anyone watching, Laura Coe intimidates me in person, but is we recently launched Good Spark, and we have our friend camp conferences. And one of my goals is we're going to be launching the Good Spark coaching program, which, one of my big goals is to have you involved in, really those insights. But I guess that goes to the point of whether you're a new franchisor or emerging, it's that collaboration and that growth, and, and really connecting with other people at different parts of their journey.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's some really great programs out there to help starting franchisors connect with other franchisors. Your Fran Camp is, I attended one actually, I've attended 2 now.
Yeah.
And they're both phenomenal, not just for the knowledge that you gain and really kind of taking a deep dive. It's not really a conference. It's more like a workshop, I think, is the better way to
Right.
kind of describe it, because you're not just spending an hour on a topic and getting some ideas and some nuggets that you can write down. It's a topic, and then you're like, okay, you're going to spend a couple hours really digging into it for your business and figuring out what makes sense and what you need to do. It's really more workshop like, and that's phenomenal. I mean, not just for that, but then you're also meeting a lot of other like people in your situation, right? A lot of other emerging franchisors, some seasoned franchisors as well, and so you're kind of getting that network. And it's funny you mentioned the first mastermind we went to. I remember it. We were right near the Brooklyn Bridge. It was
Yeah.
beautiful. And I'm still friends with, a lot of the people that I met in that initial mastermind. And we helped each other for years and years. When whoever needed help, you just pick up the phone and call them. And I think that's a critical part of really being successful in franchising, is really having that network and knowing when to take the advice and when not to. But I got a couple really good nuggets from some people at that first mastermind that really rang in my head for years and years, and on how to grow the business. And some of the things, just like, don't be quick to sell, don't, you grow this thing and you don't have to spend all this money on vendors and whatever. You can do a lot of this stuff yourself. I mean, just some of those things that saved me a ton of money and really helped me end up, maximizing, what I was doing.
Because I look back, and well, a number of the companies have exited at a really great valuation, but it's funny because I just went to whatever recent conference, and I mean, they're my friends now. I mean, you're like a family member. You just stuck with us, Laura, and I, yeah. So I mean, and for anyone who's listening to check out Fran Camp. I think it's 1851francamp.com and goodspark franchise.com. But yeah, Laura, I'm looking forward. Like we're going to kick it up to the next level, and I just feel safer when you're involved. So I appreciate everything, Laura. I
I
enjoyed this.
I appreciate you again. I mean, I think that you, for me, I actually didn't start with you. I had a different franchise attorney. Well, actually, I didn't have a franchise attorney. I was licensing. You were the one that convinced me to franchise way back when, and it was one of the best decisions that I ever made. But again, it's aligning yourself with the right people, right? You were a great fit for the type of franchisor and just kind of my personality, right? You're the, some lawyers don't have sort of the same outlook on it, right? It's always I was always having we're going to bend the rules a little bit, or are we talking orange jumpsuit? It's that
Right.
conversation, and and just that with every vendor and everybody that that I've worked with is having that right fit and that right feel. And so I love working with you, and the franchise industry is phenomenal for that. And really a lot of the friendships that I've made over the years, yeah, we're friends, but I mean critical to some of the decisions that I've made throughout my time with Snapology.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. I mean, Laura's being very nice. You should also know as founders, Laura ran a tight ship. And when Laura said something, things happened. So it was good. Laura, I appreciate it. And yeah, I appreciate everything. Thanks, Laura.
Yeah, absolutely.